Hey folks, it's Rob, and welcome back. We're continuing our series on the Monstrous Compendium Appendix for the Mystara setting from TSR from 1994. Um, got two monsters for you today. We have, starting with this lovely fellow here, the Sacrol. As you can see, he's a skull. This is one of the few times I'm going to say that actually this image comes across pretty faithfully from the original, from what I'm holding in my hand. You don't really notice how it's a bit more a bit paler than a bit more washed out than what I'm holding, but it's just a bit darker in general. But it's otherwise you can see everything, which is a nice change. It's absolutely nothing faded into the background into the white. So uh, in the green, you may notice some look maybe like worms or I'm going to go with worms. Yeah, probably not. I mean, it could be tentacles. Yeah, right? Mm. Is it a cloud? Is it like moss? We don't know yet. We haven't started reading. But, if you got to play with Skeletor's head, you're going to play with Skeletor's head. So, Sacrol. Climate/terrain, any. Frequency, very rare. Organization, solitary. Their activity cycle is at night. Their diet is special. Intelligence is low, a 7. No treasure. Alignment chaotic evil, 1 appears. Armor class 5. Movement 18. Hit dice 8. To hit AC 0, 13. Number of attacks 2. Damage per attack 2d8 tentacle and 2d8 tentacle. So we have tentacles. Special attack level drain. Yep, this is probably undead, isn't it? Like the skull didn't already tell us that. But we have already had a fake out undead creature. So, Special defenses hit only by +1 or better weapon. So, potent undead creature. Magic resistance nil. Size small, 4 feet across. Morale, fearless, 20. So, a typical morale of undead is that they're unbreakable, basically. But you can turn them, usually. We'll have to see if it fits into the turntable, right? XP value 6,000. Sacrols are undead entities of fearsome power and overwhelming hatred. They are spawned in sites of great death, and they exist solely to bring more living creatures into the realm of the dead. They aggressively attack anyone unfortunate enough to encounter them. A sacrol looks like a large skull surrounded by a constantly shifting multicolored mist. The skull resembles one creature whose life force is captured in the sacrol. The mist is the body of the sacrol. It attacks with 2 long, rope-like tentacles that are composed of mist and are suggestive of entrails. Yeah, I would say that the art definitely represents that, right? Um, Sacrols radiate a cold, clammy aura. They do not have language, but they communicate through howls. Their cries sound like the shrill death shrieks of many creatures in their death throes. If one listens closely, the individual cries can be distinguished. So, if you were to want to do that, you're going to need to work on your best kind of woogity boogity kind of noise, right? Uh, I you can I've kind of done a ghost noise from Scooby Doo, but it requires me to kind of flap my face to make the jowls move. So I can't do that while recording for you here. So I use a headset. So um, I know they tell you don't use headsets, use freestanding microphones. Uh, I don't have the room or desire to expend money on making that kind of setup happen, but that's me. I hope you appreciate this high quality headset microphone I have. uh, Combat. Sacrols use their 2 ropey tentacles against their victims. A sacrol may attack 2 victims in 1 round, but may not detect both tentacles at the same may not direct both tentacles at the same victim. Okay. A successful tentacle hit inflicts 2d8 points of damage and immediately drains 1 level from the victim. The tentacle wraps around the victim's neck and begins a chokehold in the following round, inflicting 2d4 points of damage in that round and every subsequent round until either the victim or the Sacrol is dead. The chokehold may be broken by a successful bend bars roll. That's going to be a strength check, by the way, for those of you trying to adapt this to something else. That's quite evocative right there. The struck with the tentacle wraps around the neck. You are immediately level drained, and it starts choking you immediately. Right. You are now in a life to death battle, which only one of you will be coming out of. Right. And possibly your compatriot is in a similar situation, in which case both tentacles are occupied, and the sacral is draining you and choking the life out of both of you and your compatriot. Hopefully, you still have more party members to try to keep you, get you out of this. But AC 5, not too hard to hit, but it does require +1 or better weapons. Which, I mean, if we're going to throw an 8-hit die monster at the party, hopefully there's at least some party members with +1 weapons or some spells available to cause damage, right? But, 8 hit dice, you could be looking at, easily 30, 40, 50 hit points. And, it's going to be a fight. And it doesn't help that its victims have already been level drained, which I know modern D&D doesn't really do level drain at all. And I think that's a shame, because that really just detooths all the undead out there that are really cool. Not that zombies and skeletons aren't cool, but really what makes like a wraith or a wight particularly fearsome to terrifying to a party is the fact that they run the risk of losing levels and not being able to get them back without just adventuring more. A restoration spell is a very video gamey solution to that problem, but it's actually quite a high level spell, and unless you have a high magic campaign where, the local temple has that available to them, you're not going to probably get a restoration scroll unless you have a high level cleric in the party. So, yeah, that's... And wights come along fairly early. And they are also immune to damage in the same way this is, and that you need a +1 or better weapon to, damage it. But that's actually found in the basic set for Dungeons and Dragons, right? So part of why they got rid of level drain is because, of course, players didn't care for being level drained, but that was part of the spice of the game, right? We used to have a very lethal game going on here. And what's more, the level drain caused a lot of administrative problems for the dungeon master, because now, well, how many hit points do I take away? I need to keep track of what the level change was, and how many levels that they changed, and what happened on each level, or do I just re-roll as we level back up? As we restore. Basically, if you're restoring, you should be undoing the level drain, but if you are just going to level back up, you are doing a new level up. That's how I always saw it. But so that does mean having to keep track of what the previous state of the character was. Now, everything was basically pencil and paper, or pen and paper, as the case may be. I mean, I was always doing things in pen, even though, you can't erase pen too readily. I would just rewrite things all the time. So there would always be new previous copies and iterations, and all you need to do is basically keep the previous copy of the sheet and then reference that if it came back up. So, and if they leveled up before they restored that level, they don't get that level back at a later point. They just that's how they solve that problem. So at that point, you no longer need to keep that record. But it's entirely possible that, you lost multiple levels but somehow still survived, and, you're going to level back up or get restoration spells. It's possible, right? It depends on the campaign and your DM. Not going to say it's not impossible, because plenty of DMs were raised with high magic campaigns or video game kind of ethical principles, right? You know, like Pool's Radiance, you could get restoration scrolls or go to the temple and get a restoration spell cast upon your party. And that's classic Dungeons and Dragons gold box SSI gameplay, but it's not necessarily representative of the tabletop play I've experienced. Um, and that's a massive tangent. I'm sorry about that, but I do have time because we're only going to do the 2 monsters today. The next one's a 2-pager. So we're not going to get into that. I mean, not the next one, the one after the next one. So I guess I do have a little time to talk about things, but at the same time, I appreciate we're still in the middle of reading about this monster. So I'm sorry about that. So the chokehold can be broken by a successful bend bars roll, as I said. So that's a strength check. That would be probably your player having to actually, physically grasp at the tentacle and wrench it away from your neck. That means also that you're probably having to forego your attack on the Sacrol and that your hands are free to do this. So, you're probably dropped your weapon, dropped your shield, and are prying at the tentacle from around your neck just to free yourself so you're not being choked for 2d4 points of damage on the next round. It doesn't say that the level drain continues, and I don't believe it would normally in the circumstance unless you were touched a fresh time. So perhaps don't pry the tentacle away from your neck, where it will try to attack you again for another 2d8 points of damage and another level drain and then start choking you again. Maybe just try to kill it while it has its chokehold on you. I don't know. Maybe it won't. Maybe the DM won't allow you to do that. Maybe there's verbal components to your spells that won't let you use while you're choking. Maybe you can't concentrate because you're choking. The DM will need to make several interpretations, I feel, if they want to use this monster, but it seems cool, right? And if it's cool, you want to go through the effort. Yeah. Once per day, a Sacrol can emit a powerful shriek that acts as a slay living spell against one victim. If the Sacrol is somehow magically silenced, or if a bard is singing, the voice attack is neutralized. Well, good luck if your party has a bard. Silencing it might happen. Silencing enemy casters is definitely something a party might do. I don't know if they'll be aware enough that to do that to prevent that from happening unless they are warned, or if they've seen it happen, basically. Like most other undead, Sacrols are immune to mind-affecting spells such as sleep and charm and to cold-based attacks. Yeah, pretty typical. Sacrols can be hit only by weapons of +1 or greater enchantment. Holy water inflicts 1d4 +1 points of damage on a Sacrol. They are turned as specters. Okay, so they're quite potent, actually. Not surprising. A priest of good alignment can destroy a Sacrol with an exorcism or dispel evil spell. Those are not low-level spells, but it's good to, that's an option. Those spells will actually bring peace to the departed life forces that make up the Sacrol, releasing them from the evil restlessness. So you actually give them peace in that case instead of just breaking it up and it reforms at some point into something else. A Sacrol can occasionally cast an animate dead spell to create and control a number of creatures equal to 8 hit dice. The Sacrol cannot cast the spell again until those undead servants are destroyed. So cook up 8 low-level servants for the Sacrol. Zombies, skeletons, whatever you want. Probably avoid the smarter undead. But, you do you. It says occasionally as well, which is like, okay. But at the same time, it says it can't do it again until all the servants are dead. So, I mean, it's up to you if you want to have it, have partial servants. But once the servants are destroyed, I guess it could summon a whole new batch of servants. Habitat/society. Sacrols are the collected angry spirits of the dead. They have great hatred for the living, especially for their slayers, if any. Sacrols arise in places of mass death, such as battlefields, sacked temples, and plague-ridden cities or countrysides. Such a creature is forever bound to its death site unless it follows its killers in the hope of achieving vengeance. The Sacrol can unerringly track the killers of those who became part. The Sacrol can unerringly track the killers of those who became part of the Sacrol. Okay, so the entities that make up the Sacrol, it can pursue people who killed them. Okay, right, I got you. Wise travelers know to hide from a wandering Sacrol, for even though it pursues its killers, the Sacrol will slay any living thing in its path. It seems odd that even lawful good victims can become part of an evil Sacrol, but it is speculated amongst religious scholars that the Sacrol's great hatred is the result of death trauma coupled with a chance closeness to a rift in the negative energy plane. If a Sacrol manages to avenge itself against its killers, it must return to its death site and haunt it forever. Ecology. Sacrols feed on the life energy of its victims. This is the only sustenance they require. Some priests have been known to collect the ectoplasmic remains of Sacrols and use this as an ingredient in a potion of undead control. Another hook. Always nice to have hooks. Yeah, this is I always have a soft spot in my DM heart for undead, especially classic undead, and I think this one's quite evocative. It's quite an interesting monster. Let's go to our next option for today, and this is the Scamille. Not going to try to do anything that's in relation to Laverne and Shirley. I know my demographic. You probably got that joke, but don't worry about it. So what do we have pictured? Again, doesn't seem to be too washed out that you can't make this out for a change. So despite this being a significant amount of blue involved in the image, and the portrayed item being fairly translucent, you can still make out the fact that we have some kind of pseudopods and kind of distorted looking chest and a sword here, and this guy's cowering behind his shield, which is kind of bent out of shape in a variety of places. And he's got his helmet and scabbard here, and his sword maybe over here in this tentacle, right? Yeah, interesting, right? Guy's reaching for his boot knife over here because he's getting ready to continue to attack because, victory or death, as it were. Yeah, neat. So, Scamille. Climate/terrain, subterranean. Frequency, very rare. Organization, solitary. Activity cycle, any. Diet, omnivore. Intelligence, 8, average. Treasure, no. So, no treasure. Alignment, neutral. That is true neutral. Number appearing 1d4. Armor class, 5. Movement, 3. So it can move, but not very quickly. Hit dice, 10. To hit AC 0, 11. It gets 6 attacks. Damage per attack, 3d6 each, pseudopods. Special attacks, see below. Special defenses, nil. Magic resistance, nil. Size, medium to large, 6 to 10 feet across. Morale, elite, 13. So it's not impossible to defeat one of these things and scare it off. It'll just leave apparently very slowly. XP value, 3,000. Scamilles are amorphous, amoeba-like creatures that can change their shapes. They dwell in subterranean areas and are related to ochre jellies. Okay. Unlike ochre jellies, Scamilles are intelligent and can camouflage themselves. In their normal form, Scamilles resemble giant amoebas. Each has a black nucleus surrounded by a massive rock-gray protoplasm. The protoplasm exudes extrudes 6 pseudopods. A Scamille has a slightly acidic odor, though the Scamille does not attack with acid. Scamilles use their pliable form to create mouths. They can speak Common, which is their preferred language. Scamilles do not have their own language. In general, Scamilles are not aggressive. They will wait and observe a party to determine whether it is a threat. If a party is interesting, perhaps clever or eloquent, the Scamilles will continue to watch for a while. Combat. When at rest, a Scamille takes the form of some inanimate object such as a rock, door, wall, table, chair, or chest. Scamilles cannot take the form of living creatures. The ability to change shape is limited and is not done through conscious effort. When tired, the Scamille simply draws its body together. Each Scamille can assume the form of only one inanimate object. Though the Scamille can change color slightly, a close examination will reveal such an item to be suspect. A camouflage Scamille gives opponents a -1 penalties to surprise rolls. Scamilles attack with their 6 pseudopods, each causing 3d6 points of damage. A Scamille can cause 1 pseudopod at a time to become sticky. If a victim is successfully struck with the sticky pseudopod, it is stuck fast. A stuck victim can attack only with a weapon that is already in hand at the time of the Scamille's successful assault. A victim attacking in this fashion suffers a -4 penalty to attack rolls. Once a victim is held, the Scamille's attacks with the remaining 5 pseudopods, though these have no adhesive quality to them. Attacks on a held victim automatically hit. Spells that require material components cannot be used by a held victim. In order to pull free of the sticky pseudopod, the victim must make a successful bend bars roll. There we are again, making a strength check. 1 attempt can be made per round in place of any attacks the victim might wish to make. A Scamille can choose to let go of a stuck victim. Otherwise, a victim who fails its bend bar rolls can be freed only in an application of oil of slipperiness or the death of the Scamille. Once a victim dies, the Scamille draws the victim's body into its own and secretes a powerful acid that dissolves the victim and all possessions in 1d4 rounds. Scamilles are vulnerable to light. If a light spell is cast upon a Scamille, it loses the ability to form pseudopods for 1 round. If cast on a camouflage Scamille, the light spell causes it to assume its amoeba-like form. Habitat/society. Scamilles dwell in dark places such as caves and fissures. They rarely venture above ground, even at night. Though Scamilles can be found in small groups, there is no group mentality, for each Scamille acts as it pleases, free of interference from its brethren. Scamilles are asexual beings, dividing like amoeba once every 5 years or so, when enough raw material has been gathered to allow the split. A typical Scamille lives 120 years. Scamilles like to learn secrets, and because of their camouflage ability, they are in an ideal situation to eavesdrop on other underground dwellers. When found in a good mood, a Scamille may offer information in exchange for food. However, Scamilles are subject to profound mood swings. Ecology. Scamilles keep cavern floors clear of obstructions, especially absorbing the remains of intruders to the subterranean world. So another dungeon cleaner, right? In addition to animal and plant materials, Scamilles eat small quantities of minerals and rocks and even derive some sustenance from the remains of a dead victim's equipment. Scamilles enjoy scraps of what humans and demi-humans consider food. To a Scamille, such scraps are a special taste treat. So they are neutral. They are highly dangerous, apparently, but they aren't necessarily going to attack you. They can be negotiated with and talked to, unlike... technically, mimics can do that too. Mimics are theoretically somewhat intelligent and can be tamed or charmed, as I imagine these could be charmed. Interesting, isn't it? it doesn't seem to be able to generate multiple forms, so whatever alternate form it has seems to be the form it has. It can vary the color a bit, but basically, if it looks like a chest, it looks like a chest, or it doesn't. It looks like an amoeba, or a rock, or whatever heck it can look like, right? Uh, I think it's neat. Uh, Maybe a bit powerful in its attacks for 10 hit dice. But at the same time, maybe the party's not meant to piss it off. I don't know. uh, but gee, if it gets its hand on you, the other 5 3d6 attacks automatically hit. That's a lot of damage. When a player may have a tough, pretty high level character may have 100 hit points. More commonly, you're going to have, I don't know, like, you're rolling a die every time you level for like the first 9 levels, and then you get like a set number of hit points after that. You may have your constitution bonus. Oy. I had a 7th level sorcerer who had all his 17 hit points, right? Getting caught by this would be game over. So, again, fairly lethal game, even in 2nd edition. But some of that is going to be down to whatever your DM balances as and tries to. Again, I feel it's only fair to give warnings and presage that, like, maybe you shouldn't try to stick your head in this and get yourself killed. Maybe don't stick your face in the buzzsaw, but your party will still be able to do whatever it wants to do. And if they're like, I want to stab it, they're going to stab it, right? Anyhow, thank you very much for your time today. As we're approaching the half hour, and the next one's a 2-pager, we're going to do that next time. But that one, just to give you a bit of a spoiler, is on shapeshifters. So that'll be cool. And then, we'll continue with the S's from there because there are more. Thank you very much for coming and joining me today. I hope you have a fantastic evening. Remember, if you like what I'm doing, a like helps me know that you enjoy this content and, feels good. Subscribe so you get notified of this weekly content I do. But goodbye.